Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Marketing. This week, really excited to bring in Daniel Rowles, CEO of Target Internet, fantastic digital training business with an online digital marketing training platform, really valuable. Daniel really knows his stuff about skills and training, and there's so much going on in this space, so much change. So, as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and in the meantime, let's get started. Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
I'm very good. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, nice setup you've got there, by the way. You obviously do a fair bit of this.
Yeah, so we've got the digital marketing podcast, which we worked out we've been doing for 12 years. That's been running now. So it was kind of back in the day we started that, and that's I think we were lucky, but first lead advantage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of gone straight to things. We've got a little podcast studio that sits in our academy that we've got over here in Jersey in the Channel Islands, but we never record here because we do exactly what you're doing, which is we normally do it remotely.
Yeah.
But we're making a bit of a move towards video. So we did do the last bunch in a video studio together, which was a bit of a change for us. So we're going to see how it goes. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know if it's worth doing that or not.
Yeah, definitely.
Bearing in mind I'm in Jersey, Kieran, my co-host, is in the Isle of Wight, and it's a bit of a trek to get everyone together. But we'll see how it goes.
Logistics. That's the beauty of the internet, right? Great. Okay. Well, look, thanks for joining us today. Look, I think this is a really hot topic at the moment. As you know, I write books that are used by Chartered Institute of Marketing and lots of universities. So, training and teaching and skills is something close to my heart in digital marketing, and obviously yours as well. But it's such a dynamic world, right? I mean, obviously these days I run a strategic market agency, but years ago I used to work in jobs, and people would be coming to me all the time. Well, what's the latest update on this? Have you heard this news? I'm like, being pulled in 1,000 different directions, things changing so much. So, if you were out there talking to someone who's looking to upskill in digital marketing, what do you think are the core skills they need to focus on right now?
I think there's kind of two ways of answering this. There's the one which is what's the latest thing we need to know about, and there's that kind of thinking. Which I can kind of talk to about a little bit, but there's also wait a minute, take a step back, go back to actually why we're doing this in the first place. And this is very much in your books as well, but it's that whole thing about what are we trying to achieve? Who's the target audience? What does the user journey look like? Go back to personas, user journeys, those kind of things. So I think digital marketers have this challenge that what they really need is those core fundamental business and marketing skills to be able to take a problem and actually boil it down to those kind of key things. But then this is where the challenge comes in, is that they also need these latest kind of skills. GA4, Google Analytics 4 is the big thing at the moment. Everyone's terrified of it. And with good reason, actually, interestingly, because setting it up is complicated to get it working properly. The standard reports are not useless, but on their way to being useless. So you have to do custom reports. So there's a really steep learning curve with it. And there's no choice. But so that's one area at the moment. I mean, if you want to make a bit of money at the moment, having an agency that's going around setting up GA4 for people is something that I think is going to make a lot of money for a lot of agencies currently, because people are looking at it going, I don't want to do this myself. I don't understand it. I need someone else to do it. But we're actually finding it's beyond the capability of a lot of agencies as well, because it's very technical getting the setup right.
It is incredibly technical, and it's a challenge that I'm hearing from probably the majority of businesses I'm speaking to at the moment, and some of them are just giving up on Google Analytics and going somewhere else altogether because it's just too much of a headache for them. So I get that. That's a really hot topic right now.
Yeah, and I think the other one on that latest thing. I mean, if I had £1 for every time I was asked this question, it's like, should we be on TikTok? I mean, every type of company in the world have been asking that, and the answer is actually you go back to basics and say two things. One, is your target audience on TikTok, and that alone is not enough, but that's a starting point. And then, are they on TikTok to consume the type of content that you're planning on sharing on TikTok? And if you can't say yes to both of those, it really isn't the place for you to be. There is that whole first lead advantage, get on there early and so on as well. But I think that ship has sailed for a lot of people already. So, I think it's that combination of the absolute fundamentals of understanding your audience. And I think, sadly, what's happened is you've got a lot of people moving into digital marketing roles that are very good on tactical side of things. They get social media. They know how to use it. They can do great kind of social posts that get engagement and so on. But they've never had any training in the fundamentals of all of this stuff, the core competencies of marketing. And then you've got the traditional marketers that have worked in marketing for a long time, are really scared of all the digital stuff because it's moving quickly, and go, I don't know enough about it and I need to really upskill. And actually, they're probably in a better position to some extent to move into these kind of channels and work out how they should be
Yeah.
used. And it's just by the nature of the fact that people are, they're using TikTok in their day-by-day life. They kind of get it, so they know how to use it. Whereas for other people, that's kind of terrifying. So I think it's twofold. We've got to keep our skills up to date with these, latest trends, changes, social media updates. We've got this huge fragmentation, so there's even more social platforms to think about. But there's no point doing all that stuff if you haven't got the fundamentals right in the first place. So I would make sure that you had that kind of rounded skill set, and that's probably part of the problem, is that there's a broad set of things to know about.
Yeah.
And we always talk about, in the training we're doing in the academy we're running here, is like creating T-shaped people, which is this idea of, probably come across, I'm sure, which is that, the broad set of problem solving skills. So that it's kind of the top of the T, but then you've got your deep kind of skills, which is the kind of going down part of the T, which is saying that I have got expertise in a particular area. That's my specialism, but I know enough to ask the right questions in the other areas.
Yeah.
And that's kind of missing. So at the moment, if you say to a marketing director, do you know the right questions to ask about getting GA4 set up? Do you understand what GA4 can and can't do? They just won't have a clue because it's too tactical.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where the problem seems to be coming out at the moment, is those people that aren't actually doing, they're managing people that are doing, their skills are getting further and further behind, and therefore they're not asking the right questions. And that means they're not getting the most out of their teams, but also potentially their agencies could be pulling the wool over their eyes quite easily as well.
Yeah.
Here's a chart that's going upwards. Oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
And it's kind of meaningless. And we're still obsessed with kind of vanity metrics,
True.
visits and likes and followers and even engagement to some extent. It's like, it's okay, but what does it mean? What does it really mean?
Yeah,
and I think
that's right.
people that can untangle that's a huge opportunity. So
yeah, I mean, it's like you say, going back to the beginning, right? I mean, a lot of what you're saying is almost directly out of my books, right? I mean, even
I have read them. I wasn't copying it, I promise, but I have read them.
Don't worry, we're not going to get into plagiarism. Don't worry. So I think for me, the reason I wrote the book is for that same reason, right? There's people who've been working in marketing for years who just don't know the digital arena. There's young people who get the digital bit really, really well, but they don't have the marketing training. I had a third part as well, a third audience, which is people working in technology who are therefore doing SEO and web design and things like that from a tech perspective, but they don't understand the marketing side of that. And you need to now. They're intrinsically linked. So yeah, I agree with you completely on that. And there's a lot of bells ringing in what you say there. I think you, as a marketing leader in a business, it is hard to keep your finger on the pulse now, and especially as you age. The fact is, as you get older and you have kids, you don't have time to be doing all the stuff you did in your 20s, and therefore you do lose touch with some of the technology and some of the trends in the world, and you can't quite relate to an 18 to 25-year-old when you're 45 to 55. You can't. So you need that sort of younger audience. You still need to be doing your research and basing it on real facts and data. But how do you keep your finger on the pulse? So, I mean, what's your advice in that area? If you're a CMO or a marketing director, or even just a senior marketing manager, just moving up into that sort of leadership area, how do you keep your finger on the pulse without just being drowned in the depth of doing everything?
So what I've found, even for myself, because I find I'll go and speak at a conference, there'll be some news announcement from Meta or from Google or something that morning, and some smart aleck at the conference will decide to stick their hand up and ask me my opinion on what's just happened, hoping that I haven't actually read the news or something.
In there, yeah.
So what I've taken to doing, from a really, really practical point of view, there's a tool called Feedly. Feedly is just a newsreader type tool, and you can search for anything in there, news and blogs, and I will go in and I will find the Facebook, the Meta blog, the Google blog, the LinkedIn blog. I'll go through all those major platforms and I'll dump them into a single feed. And what it allows you to do, because invariably they will announce the latest change, the latest update, the latest algorithm update in that place.
Mm-hmm.
You can then go through, scan through, look for anything that's trending, and it'll have a little green line next to it. And you make sure you scan read it so you understand what's going on and decide, do I need to know any more about this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that I need to investigate a little bit more? Because at least then, for example, when TikTok are releasing new ad formats and they're fundamentally changing how they run advertising, that's going to make me think I probably need to understand this a little bit more or ask some questions about it. So it will give me enough to either arm myself to deep dive into something or to go through and then go, I need to ask someone else about this, whatever it might be, just flag things up that are important. So I don't make myself look like a complete idiot when I'm asked that question on
Yeah,
stage.
no, I think that's great advice. Yeah, there's plenty of other sort of Google updates and even following a few really good people on Twitter. There's a
Right.
in every field there's some great people on Twitter who are just constantly updating all day long. I don't know what they do for a job. Somehow they seem to have every 5 minutes they're able to tweet, but they put good on them for it. But yeah, I think there's some great ways of staying up to date like that. That's fantastic. So look, one thing that I know you do is the digital skills benchmark report, and I think the next one of those is due out in January, and that's a really great, insightful report. Can you give us a bit of a sneak into what's coming up in January?
Yeah. So the way the report works is that it's actually testing people's knowledge, not skills. So it takes back people about half an hour to run through it, and it will just ask them a load of questions around digital marketing topics, around 14 areas. And then it basically weights them and all that kind of stuff and says, right, for analytics and data, this is where your skills are and so on. And when people do it, they also put in their industry and their seniority. So we can kind of then look at it. And we've had, I think, about 8,000 people do it over the last year. And it's kind of partnered with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. So they've checked the data and they're happy with it. And what you always see is the same kind of things. The last 2 years, and we're seeing it again this year, have been slightly problematic in that skills have gone backwards. Now that sounds bad, but what's happening is that all this innovation and change we're talking about in Google and Meta and everyone else and TikTok and so on is happening at pace and continues to happen. You've got, things like virtual reality, starting to take off a little bit more. We've got all these different technologies that are kind of happening, and people are just not staying up to date. So actually, it looks like skills have moved backwards slightly. The good news about that in a way is that you don't need to be 100% all these topics. You just need to be better than your competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So you just want to make sure that you're kind of identifying where those skills gaps are. So that slight move backwards, the thing that's worried me most looking at some of the data is that the things that have moved backwards, the two that really highlighted for me was analytics and data. And I think that is this whole shift away, third-party cookies disappearing. There's a few technical things that have gone into that. But also content marketing has gone backwards. So what it means is that we're not measuring the content we're doing as well as we were, and we know less about content. So there's a lot more content, and it's just bad. So
I've had that conversation today already. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So this is the thing that I think if skills are going backwards, we've got a problem. If we're not measuring what we're doing, that's terrible. That's a real worry because we're not iterating. We're not taking that traditional iterative kind of Deming cycle kind of approach to things. So there's a real problem in there. What we've also seen is knowledge of usability has gone backwards a bit. Mm-hmm. So that means that the user journey, persona stuff, all that good stuff we were talking about isn't really being taken attention to. So it means there's more and more noise. And I came back, I was at the HubSpot conference about a month ago. And every conference talk I went to is a brilliant conference, but every single one I went to, they mentioned two things, which was one was content kind of overload and burnout. Mm-hmm. Everyone was just so much content, it's hard to cut through the noise. And the other one was community. And the idea of community was there because we can't get to people so easily. So we need to build advocacy. We need to build these communities to own those relationships. And the skills thing is reflecting that. It's basically saying that actually we're doing more content, but we're doing it worse. We don't really understand where it fits into the user journey. We're not measuring it properly.
Yep.
So it just means actually, if we did a bit less and we did it better, we'd stand out. Because doing things averagely gets you absolutely nowhere now because everyone's kind of just doing all this average content. So we've got to try and find ways of standing out. And I think that's what the skills kind of really tells us. The other thing is where the biggest skills problems have happened is at that kind of mid-level management team leader level, which is kind of indicative of what we just said in the fact that essentially people are managing teams now. They're not on the coalface doing it themselves. And therefore they're gradually kind of getting behind. And they're not really keeping their skills up to date in the same way. And it also means, I think, when there's training, if they're going away for a training course or doing some online training, they're not committing their own time to that because they think, I'm really busy. I've got a team to manage. I'll let the team go on it and I won't do the training. And then suddenly they don't know to ask the right questions. So it becomes a problem. So incidentally, if people want to benchmark themselves completely for free or benchmark their team for free, they can as well. If you just search digital marketing skills benchmark, it will be number one in Google, and people can go through and kind of test it out. and just see how they get on and kind of benchmark themselves or their
I'm
team.
interested if someone listens to this episode in 10 years' time, if you're still number one on Google. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, we've been number one for the last 4 years straight, and I put a lot of effort into making sure it stays that case, because otherwise it's a bit embarrassing in all these podcasts when it comes out and we're not there anymore.
Okay, very good. There's a couple of interesting points in that. One is the content piece. Like I say, I had a conversation earlier today with somebody. We were talking about the value of content, and the fact that content's becoming quite homogenized. People are just finding a formula for, okay, top 10 of this or 3 reasons to do that, and it's ticking that box of I've got a long form piece of content split into lots of sections that answer these points, and then I can add some structured data to it from an SEO perspective. It's just box ticking for sort of the search engines, and as a result, content is becoming far less valuable. And there's a bit of a infighting in an organization that I know where, on one side people are saying, look, we need to produce really good, valuable content that's meaningful, and the other side is saying, look, just churn out good SEO content, as much of it as you can, right? So I think that's a hot topic, and I would strongly recommend personally that every business and every business should be looking at content strategy for one reason or another, is genuinely looking at where that fits into the journey and where it's adding value. And that's what it's really about. Where does it add value? As with anything in marketing, how does this answer a question, solve a problem, push people into a funnel that they're actively looking for? How does it contribute to a point along the journey? And I think that's got a little bit lost as we've just focused on what's the keyword density of that, and does it say top 10 and therefore it's going to rank, and how many treatments can we do of that for SEO and Instagram and da. So I think that's a really interesting point. The other point I just wanted to make was AI, because I think that
I was going to join these things together as well.
Because that's a huge one, right? And I've been playing in that field for a few years now. It's a fascinating one, and it's one that I think a lot of people still don't get. And it's fine not to get it. It's still very new, but there's so much going on in that field at the moment around AI. Content writing is one, but also, and that's a whole other conversation. We can speak for hours on that one. But also there's that, and there's the AI. There's AI around SEO. There's AI around social media. There's so much going on in that space now that I think that's a real skill gap for most people. I would probably venture to say that. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think we were literally just done a podcast episode on this, and what we demonstrated is we've been playing around with Jasper, which is one of the AI writing tools, a little bit, and we were it now generates art as well. So you can then combine that through, and basically you get to a situation where you put a topic in, and we were kind of live demoing this. So I put in we did a Deming cycle, so I would put in PDCA model, and it will write a blog post and write the PDCA model, just a marketing model. But then it will create a unique piece of art to go on the blog post that goes with that as well. And then it will record that as an audio recording using my automated voice. This was using a tool called Descript. We've trained it with my voice, so it can deep fake me all in a couple of seconds. So given that's the case, if I can do that, if everyone can do that, suddenly that is completely commoditized, that kind of thing. Now, it might still provide value if I get it in front of the right person at the right time in their journey. So my marketing efforts can leverage that. But actually, really, coming back to your point, is that I need to differentiate. I need to do something better. Now, it might just be that I do that for a particular audience in a better way, or it might be I do it in a more beautiful way. It just needs to be kind of done in a slightly better way. And I love the whole Rand Fishkin 10x content kind of piece, that whole thing about look at the best stuff that's out there, then go, how can you do it 10 times better?
Yeah,
that's what you need to stand out. And you can't do everything if you're doing that kind of content. You need to focus in on a few key pieces, as you say, that provides value.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really valuable. One thing I know you talked about, is we're talking about a few gaps in skills here. Recently, you talked about digital skills crisis. Tell me a little bit about that. That sounds scary.
Well, this is the thing. I started off the talk by saying, what a terrible name for a talk. I think we've had enough crisis with politics and finance and COVID and everything else lately. So let's call it a digital skills big problem. And the big problem is that, what the benchmark is telling us is that skills are moving backwards, where people aren't staying up to date. And really importantly, there is not a culture of learning in organizations. And we know this because a company will come to us and say, right, we've got 20 marketers. We want you to upskill them, benchmark them. And we go, great. Okay, we'll benchmark them. Here's the access to the platform. It's got this great stuff. And then no one uses it. So, okay, right. There is not a culture of learning in the organization. So we have to go in and enable that and help them to do it. But it is that thing of learning is not seen as part of the day role. And therefore, it's something you do in your own time, or you go out on a jolly to a training course and have a nice lunch and you come back and carry on doing things exactly as you did before. So that needs to shift. And I think getting that cultural change in place is actually part of this. So it's great having the learning interventions, but actually what you also need is that cultural change within the organization to try and embed this stuff and actually enable and encourage the uptake of learning, and actually saying it's your responsibility to learn, but it's our responsibility as an organization to enable that learning as well. Yeah. And if we can do those two things, that's what really makes a difference.
I mean, culture is so important in this stuff. I mean, I've run a lot of big digital transformation projects, especially some very, very big global companies, and those are the ones in my mind that struggle with this more than anything else. You normally in the sort of 100,000 plus employees sort of size of company, you normally have some fantastic training and development teams, and they're very passionate about it, and they'll work within the organization externally with experts. They'll put together these fantastic courses, but then no one actually uses it, right? And it's not their fault. It's not the training and development guys' fault.
Right.
It's the fact that this is a cultural change. You need all the managers across the organization to buy into supporting their staff in developing, and not saying, hey, you know what, forget your development 2 hours that you've got scheduled for this week or this month, because actually, you know, I've got this project that I want you to do. Right. Tomorrow, so tough luck, cancel that. And you know, if you want to do it, you can do it on Saturday. That's not an appropriate way of encouraging learning. And the fact is, the training and development, developing your people and developing yourself, enables you as a person to perform better, and enables the organization to perform better, and it enables you to get a competitive edge. So shutting that down in order to do a tactical short-term delivery to a deadline is a big mistake, but something that I see a lot with these, as you mentioned, these empty training portals that are brilliant and are not being used.
Right.
It's a real cultural change. Any transformation in an organization is about getting all of those people bought into, this is how you support your people in developing their skills.
Yeah, and I think this thing of digital transformation, we did a load of research into this when I was writing a book on the topic with a guy called Thomas Brown, and then I head up the digital transformation program at Imperial College, and what we kind of found, there's these key areas that you need to look at, obviously, but if you didn't have purposeful culture, because what happens in most organizations is the culture just happens, it's the way we do things around here. And actually the digital transformation was really about instilling a purposeful culture. So how can we put the processes, how can we put the interventions, the leadership in place to make sure that we guide this? And it always comes up, but Google is such a brilliant example of this with the 20% time for engineers. 20% of their time spent on innovation projects. Now, what I didn't realize while I was looking into this, that I thought that was quite a new idea. And I didn't realize that 3M had started doing this back in the 40s. And actually they had 15% time. And it was, 15% time will be spent on innovation. And it's how Post-it notes were invented. So it's this kind of thing of, and I just think it's a very structural way of making people focus on new things.
Yeah.
So you can do similar things with training, the whole lunch and learn thing. Go and consume this piece of content or learning intervention. Then we're going to get together and share what we thought about it. It enforces people. It's like a book club. They have to go and do it because they're going to share. Having that thing of then saying, okay, you're going to report back in 3 months and say what you've done with this. So giving that accountability, that enablement, that encouragement, and giving people the space and time to do it. And that's where that, 15% or 20% time, whatever it might be 5%, 2% for learning, whatever. But we need to actually put that space in to learn something, because we all know that unless you really get into something and play around with it, and it doesn't really embed your learning in. And I think that's the challenge, is that it's cultural, but it requires resource and commitment. And unless you've got true leadership buy-in, it doesn't work. And if you're getting this lip service, training is very important. We upskill our teams, it's very important. Now go and hurry up, hit your deadlines. We've got quarterly targets to hit and so on. It just doesn't work. And it's completely to your point as well, of that whole thing of, we've got this little tactical thing that he's doing. That always takes priority. But in reality, the long-term impact of not doing that upskilling. I mean, it's exactly what you were saying. Very large organization we were working with. We'd worked with them for years. Had a great training relationship. New CEO came in and he basically got rid of the entire training team. Said, we don't need this. And so they were doing no training. And the business carried on for about 2 years really, really well, and then just tanked. Because essentially what had happened was that they hadn't been upskilling. They kept on doing things the same way. And suddenly all their competitors just out-innovated them when there was a bit of a shift in the marketplace. So you are, to some extent, insuring yourself against disruption if you invest in skills. And if you want innovation, you need to invest in skills as well. The two things kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, short-termism is not, it's not a great way to look. So yeah, I fully encourage everyone to think long-term, invest in the future, be strategic. I think that's good advice. So Daniel, look, where should everyone go? What should people be doing? Obviously, they should be looking at Target Internet for the digital marketing training platform. People still got time to take part in the benchmark for this year, or
Yeah. If you go to targetinternet.com, or if you just go Google digital marketing skills benchmark, you'll find it. You can fill it in. And we will compile that data at the end of the year, and then we'll release it in January. You can download the current version at the moment, and there's no email or anything like that. You can just download the full report, and you can get your own results if you're interested in doing that. But yeah, get in there, and you'll be part of the results for next year.
brilliant. That's really valuable. Thanks. Look, Daniel, it's been a really great conversation. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for listening to this week's episode of For the Love of Marketing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers, Daniel.
Thanks very much.